Hi, my name is Karen Welton, and I want to welcome back Katherine Christner.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
I interviewed you for your first labor. I got to be your doula for both your births.
Yes.
And so go check out her first story if you're catching this one first. She has her first son was born in an amazing birth story. And today you're going to share Libby's birth story, your daughter.
Yes.
Which was completely different.
Totally different. Totally different.
Which I love. It always is.
Yes.
So this story really starts while you're pregnant, and a lot of stuff was going on in your life. Tell me about what you were struggling with.
Yeah, I tend to be a person who is very type A, wants control, wants everything organized and going my way, really. And when you're pregnant, that doesn't always happen. Physically, I felt great, and I felt like Superwoman this pregnancy. My first pregnancy, I was very overweight and very swollen and uncomfortable and unhealthy, and I was dealing with that the first pregnancy. And then this time, I felt great physically. Towards the end, though, I just really was feeling emotional, and I think a lot of it was probably hormones, but it was also just a lot of external factors going on. My parents live out of state. They live in Wisconsin, so from us that's an 11-hour drive, and their plan all along was just to hop in the car when they got the call that I was in labor, they'll make it when they make it, and that was fine because she was my second, and
you wanted your dad to be there.
I did, because what he told me was that he was going to have to go back when I was at 40 weeks, and he was not going to be making another trip out till Christmas. And we are so close with our parents, and we value, since they have moved out of state, we value every moment we have with them. And so that was really hard for me to think that he could possibly not meet her till Christmas. I know some people go longer than that, before they meet grandbabies or other family members, but that was just really hard for me to...
So it was like a deadline.
Yes, I felt like I had a deadline.
That day.
That we needed to have this baby by 40 weeks or else. So...
And that pressure is enough to make your body think, oh, there's a threat. There's enough adrenaline, cortisol to go, it's not safe to go into labor yet.
Yep.
Even though we're telling our body... We have to have the baby.
Yeah.
That stress, it creates stress in our body. And our bodies don't know the difference between a predator in the wild or the stress our brain is releasing to saying, go into labor.
Yes. Yep. And I knew that too. I knew all that education.
We talked about all that.
I knew that, but
we knew all that. It doesn't matter. Your
in
body
reality,
is still primal.
When you have your plan, and it wasn't going my way.
Yep.
So
with your perfect plan doesn't go perfectly according to plan.
And in those weeks, I remember this was actually around week 40. I remember my son just being really challenging that day, and I just hit this breaking point, and my mom sent my husband and I out to go run some errands. I couldn't even make it into the store because I was a wreck, and I truly believe I had the only panic attack I've had in my life, like hyperventilating, just bawling my eyes out and not being able to breathe. And my husband afterwards told me I didn't know if I should take you somewhere because it was intense. And So, and I just...
all that had to come up and out.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So, just a huge emotional time that was for me. So...
There's nothing like pregnancy and birth to cause us to deal with control issues.
Yeah, right. And emotions, because you're so emotional anyway. And
any emotion.
Just everything I felt like then
was
just...
like a pressure cooker.
Yeah,
totally.
Gonna boil over. So...
I'm sure none of you can relate to this.
Right. Everyone else is just so peaceful all the time, just so zen in their zone.
Together, right, ladies?
Yeah. No. So
this is real here. We do real.
Yeah. So 40 weeks came, and my dad had to leave, and that was almost like, okay, it happened. He's not going to be here.
Yeah, you accepted it.
I accepted it. Let's move on. But then between weeks 40 and 41, 41 weeks is how long I went. My grandfather, who was in a nursing home, it's my mom's dad, took a really bad turn. And so in a way it was wonderful because my mom got to be here for his last days of life. She wouldn't have been here had I had the baby, and they had gotten to go back to Wisconsin. So she was here. She was able to help with my son and help our extended family through that. He came to know Christ right before he passed, which was beautiful. And just this, I remember when my mom told me that, I just was bawling because it was something that we had just been praying for all of our lives. So it was really beautiful. So we were dealing with that. And again, just, I had released from my dad going back, and then we had this other stressor come up.
Your grandfather.
With my grandfather. And so,
he passed.
And then he passed Saturday, September 14th. And that morning we woke up and my parents weren't home, and we just kind of knew. And my dad called and said, that they were at the nursing home with everybody and he had passed. And that was really awful. It was really hard.
That's a lot of emotion. A lot.
It was a ton. And in some ways, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know if I really even still have closure from it because I had to miss everything then.
Yeah.
So it was really difficult. It was really tough. So that happened Saturday, and although it was so emotional and devastating to me, that was my release of where my mind finally told my body, though, it's safe now. Like, we have nothing else we're worrying about. Like, Grandpa's good. He's in heaven. And he's with Jesus. And my dad is here because he had to come back. As a Christian woman, it's so hard sometimes. We have our own plans. And it's so hard to just, we say we trust God, but do we really?
Walking it
out, do we really? And he knows every time. He knows. And with both of my births, they've been reminders that God has this under control. He's got it. And we don't need to worry, even though it sometimes is not easy for us to not worry. So Sunday morning, we went to church, and I was feeling some Braxton Hicks. Hadn't told anybody.
And you had a big cry the night before.
Oh, yeah,
like,
huge.
Big cry.
Like, come to Jesus, like, literally, come to Jesus moment. I was...
Which is really, like...
on the floor in our bedroom, and I just remember I actually took a picture of, I was just sitting cross-legged on the floor and took a picture down to my belly, and like all you could see, I think I actually may have sent it to you, and was like, I'm in a zone right now, and just worshiped and prayed and just gave everything over to Jesus. Yes. And I needed that because I don't think I was really giving things over to him. I think I was still trying to hold on to my last bit of control. And so let go of that. And, at this point, 41 weeks. So it's going to be close. Like you told me, babies don't stay in there forever.
So right. You're not designed to be pregnant forever.
We knew that it was going to happen. But
it feels like they will.
Yeah, it really did. And I remember bouncing on that birth ball constantly thinking, I'm just going to bounce this baby out of me. And I started that at like 39 weeks. And
good cry. It's what every one of us needs.
Just needed that. So, we went to bed that night. Everything was fine. I didn't have any contractions through the night, and woke up Sunday morning and was getting breakfast ready, making my coffee, and realizing, okay, I've had a few Braxton Hicks, and okay, I've been having these for quite a few weeks now. And I think in my head too, I knew that if I got too excited that labor was starting, that could potentially stop it again. And I just didn't want to have false labor again. Yeah. So we just ignored it, went about our morning.
You've had this happen 3 times now, start and stop.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I had 3 times where I was timing contractions in those weeks that were like 3-4 minutes apart.
That's really amazing to me, because that's the power of the mind.
It is.
That our mind can shut down labor with stress and anxiety. Absolutely. Like, okay, it's here. And then, but my dad's leaving, staying, my grandpa, all of that. It's like this drip of adrenaline in our body, and that will shut down labor. 3 times for you.
I called my husband from the bathroom of TJ Maxx because my brother and sister-in-law don't know I'm in early labor. Tell anybody? No, nobody. So it just was kind of fun at that point. People had been asking for weeks now. So once I finally knew it was the real deal, I didn't really want to say anything. So I called my husband and said, things are getting a little more intense. I'm having to really kind of catch my breath. They're definitely, here, but they were still manageable, not painful. I wasn't having to enter into this birthing state yet. It was just, they were getting more intense and a little more uncomfortable. And then it was really bizarre because I was going to the bathroom and I almost felt this urge to push. It was really weird. And that's why I called my husband, because I'm like, kind of almost felt like I could have pushed, like, but I didn't. And I'm like, I don't think I really need to, but it was just kind of a weird, like,
Something's
just
happening.
like, and I think maybe it was that she really dropped, really dropped. Because when I had gone to see my midwife, whom I love, at my last visit with her, Seal, she's great. She's like, that baby is low. We just hung out for a bit. I was still feeling regular contractions.
And your family came over to your house.
Yep, my brother and sister-in-law were there with us. And
they didn't know the whole time?
No.
What did it feel like? How did you hide it?
I don't know. I remember bouncing on the birth ball in the living room, and I would just like hold my belly and like I'm just listening to them talk, and I would be like, yep, there comes another one. Like I'm just kind of like letting them ride, and they really do like. I love thinking about them as just this wave that just comes crashing back onto shore. And so I was just feeling the wave come and go. And I was timing them. I think they were probably at that point, I don't know, 5-6 minutes apart or so. And then we took my son up to bed. His bedtime's like 7:30. And I remember reading stories with him laying on his bed. So I'm still like, able to talk, able to do things, definitely experiencing more frequent contractions though. And I remember giving him a kiss and just saying, I think you might have a baby sister in the morning. Aww. And, you sleep tight. And, we prayed and did all that. And it was about 8:00. I remember letting my husband, finish up bedtime. And I went downstairs and I said to my mom, who was back at that point, said to my mom and my sister-in-law, I'm just going to take the iPad. I think I'm just going to go upstairs and just watch something. And I'm really tired. That's all I told them. Still didn't tell them. Because like I said, at this point, it was like a fun little secret like that nobody knew. And I think I was just so sick of people asking too. Sick of it. Like, I mean, I lived with my mom for 2 weeks of people calling every half hour asking how I was doing. Yes. So I was just kind of over it. So went upstairs and I started watching Parks and Recreation. I'll never forget. I don't remember what episode, but I started watching it on Netflix on the iPad and I had to pause the episode like 3 minutes in. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't as relaxing as I thought it was going to be. Like, I came up here to just kind of get some peace and quiet.
You said, like, your instinct was, like, just to be, like, cave yourself in.
Yes, and I didn't really experience that in my first labor. And in my first labor, we had a lot of people at the hospital waiting. It was just really long. And I remember discussing with you.
Like 15 people rush in.
Oh, yeah. And I remember knowing that people were out in the waiting room and thinking about the sounds I was making and oh my goodness, my stepfather-in-law is hearing me right now. Like that's embarrassing. And I think a lot of that actually made that labor really long. I was glad to have that support. I mean, it was wonderful to have my mom there. Curse, But yeah, I think it definitely prolonged it.
You mentioned like that need to please people. And
yes.
That's so real for women in labor because we are so vulnerable to other people's suggestions and how other people are feeling. And I feel like our empathy is even like kicked up when we're like in labor and pregnant, that need to please is like, can really derail our labor if we let it.
Like, I feel like the last thing you want is to be inconveniencing somebody when you're in labor. Like, you don't want to feel like you're inconveniencing anybody. So I remember I had
still had guests over and you're up there just like going into your zone.
Yep. And I just love our bedroom. It just is this warm blue color and it just felt right. And so I remember I had to get over onto all fours and I like that position for intense contractions. And I just like had my head down in my pillow and I would just kind of from side to side during them. And I started doing that deep moaning sound that's just natural. Like I just did it. And I think that was the other thing too. I knew I was going to be getting loud. I didn't want anybody hearing it. And so I had paused. So we're like 3 minutes in, I had paused, rolled over. I started almost getting this like, like it's coming. Like it's here.
These are getting intense.
So
like, go primal or go home.
Yep. So I was like, okay, so roll back over, press play. I'm like, okay, that was intense. So like
at what point are you like, maybe we should send our guests home and I should call them?
It never even occurred to me. I was like, we're just gonna like deep fine. So I had another one. And again, I don't even know if I made it 3 minutes. And I had another one. And I worked myself through that one. But I could almost feel this like, it wasn't it was going to be like, like this nervous sound. So I called you.
You did. Yep.
I was like, Karen.
You sure waited a while.
Yep. And I think that was about 8:30. I put it in there because I actually
8:30.
went back and looked at since this was recent enough, I went back and looked at our text.
It was 8:30. I have it on my
8:30,
phone.
and I called her and I just said, can you please just listen to these? And I wasn't even timing them. I knew they were close by how frequent I had to pause my show. And I just said, could you listen to these and help me through them, help me remember breathing and everything, which was, it kicked in like that. As soon as I heard your voice, as soon as you were just talking to me and just saying, breathe into it and you're doing great, like I could really sink into it and relax. And so I remember I had the one. And you were like, okay, that was great. I'm just going to hang on to see when the next one is, see how far apart. I was like, okay, that's great. And at this point, I had actually moved onto the floor. And I was kneeling on the floor next to the edge of my bed and kind of like, almost like how I would have been with my husband had he not been playing a board game downstairs. Well, had I told him. In his defense, he had no idea that this was happening. And so I just was on the bed and just kind of leaning forward and I remember finishing that contraction and you said, okay, that was 1.5 minutes. I'm going to hang on for one more to see, how that goes. And I think I had another one about 2 minutes after that. And you said, do you want me to meet you at the house or the hospital? And I said the house because I think I was still in denial that this was happening the way, and that I was handling it so well.
You were.
I think in my head, because I was handling it so well and had all those things in my tool bag from last time, that I wasn't concerned.
Did they hurt at all?
No, they were completely pain-free, but I mean, they were intense. And
I couldn't hear that on the phone. And I was listening.
They felt intense.
I was listening for it. Because remember, I even said to you, "Go ahead and go back, see if you can go to sleep."
Yes, and I'm like, no, I don't think I can do that. And so,
but I couldn't hear that. You were.
It was crazy.
Them so well.
But I also think because I had such a long labor with my son. I didn't think it was going to be going this quick. I'm like, we're probably going to be, probably tomorrow morning is when the baby will come. So I think that's why I just was dealing with it on my own and okay with it. So after I got off the phone with you, I texted my husband because I wasn't going to go downstairs. So I texted him. I said, you really, I think, need to come upstairs. I think, we need to talk. And I said, I just got off the phone with Karen. And he's like, okay. So he gets upstairs. Or I may have texted him before I even called you because he took about 20 minutes to get upstairs. So he came up at about 8:40 and I had another contraction with him there and I had him I was still on all fours. I had him rubbing my back and squeezing my hips and then I threw up. And then and then I knew because I was like, okay.
I'm in transition.
I'm at least 8 centimeters now and this is getting real.
Time to go.
So he looked at me, I go, you need to call Karen back and then you need to call Seal, our midwife. Who is so good about, even if she's not the on-call midwife at our hospital, she wants to be there. So she was so great. So he calls you, he says, yep, Katherine just threw up. I think you need to just meet us at the hospital. So you were about a half hour drive away from us. So we had our bags all packed and everything. So I'm in my street clothes. I had leggings on, shirt and top, cardigan over top. And so we're starting to kind of gather things. And I remember not even being able to make it from our room to the bathroom without having another one. And then I'm trying to get downstairs to go find my shoes and I have to stop at the chair in the living room. So, I mean, we're frequent. We're every 2 minutes, every minute and a half. It was there.
Thank God you live around the corner.
So that's the amazing thing is about a year prior, we moved to a block and a half from the hospital. So God knew that we wouldn't have made it if we had had a side of the road birth. So around, I think we finally gathered everything. I probably had maybe 4 or 5 more contractions at home. We finally got everything, made it out of the house. We also knew we lived a block and a half away, so we didn't need to bring the whole house with us.
You're definitely cutting it close, though.
We could have. So we get in the car, and man, I feel so bad for women who have that 40-minute drive after, or they're going through transition in the car. Because I had 2 contractions in the car, and we live literally
1 block away.
1 block away. I mean, and they were the worst. Because you can't.
It's uncomfortable.
You can't get into your favorite position. So I remember just gripping like the seat and like, like in the car.
Those were probably painful.
Thankfully, yes. They weren't horrible, but I remember being like, oh my goodness.
This is the worst, yeah.
We get into, this is the funniest part to me. We get into the ER and, of course it's obvious to the woman that I'm pregnant and that I'm in labor. And so she says to me, she goes, okay, name. I'm in the middle of a contraction. She's asking me for my name. My husband goes, Steven. And she goes, my husband has the greatest stories from birth. Watch the last one. And he goes, Steven. She's like, no, her name. And so she's like, Katherine. He goes, Katherine. And the woman has literally the packet of papers, 20 different signatures I have to go through. I'm gripping this chair in front of me, going, as I'm like signing frantically. And
like this baby is
it was the longest process. I mean, I don't even know how they made out my name because I was just scribbling on every sheet just because the baby was coming. Baby was coming.
Like,
and obviously that woman, I mean, again, maybe I was so well composed, she didn't think I was as close as I was.
So she had probably no idea.
But I remember telling her, I'm sorry, because like between a contraction, I go, it's gonna get really loud. Like I'm really sorry. And I used my birthing teacher voice, I guess. But like, oh man, I had those deep moans.
Yes.
Like, oh my goodness, opening everything up. And so we finally, what felt like an eternity. 9:23. I mean, it's just so crazy. So 9:23 is when we show up at the hospital. And we're signing all these papers starting at 9:23. So we get through probably 5 minutes of signing everything, getting registered. We waited in the waiting room.
The longest 5 minutes of your life.
Yes. We waited in the waiting room. It seemed like forever, but it honestly was probably only a few minutes. And nurse comes down. I remember now I can actually dance with my husband because now he's with me. And so I'm dancing with him. Oh, and I remember this old couple over in the corner of the waiting room. And they're like, what's happening over there? And so they got quite the, show that night. So the nurse comes down with the wheelchair from maternity. And I'm looking at her like, I don't think I can get in this chair. Like, I mean, her head was right there.
Oh, I bet.
And I'm like, I'll show you all. So I'm like literally like, how am I gonna get in this chair? And I'm like easing my way down and like having a contraction like as I'm sitting. And so she gets me in the chair. I have like another one in the elevator on the way up. And at this point, I'm letting those doors open to the elevator and the whole floor knew. Because I was just like, like help me, everybody.
You're like, you're having a baby in the elevator.
Yes. And so the nurse actually told me after that she thought I was going to be the first elevator birth she had. And she was this young, sweet nurse. And she told me afterwards, because she was my nurse that whole first night, she's like, I was terrified. So they wheel me into triage. And the nurse is like, okay, we're going to hook up the, monitor. We're just going to measure your contractions. Let's get you into a gown. And I just looked at her. I'm like, no, that's not happening. This baby is coming. So they were like, well, can we get you up on the bed? So we're like in triage. I'm on the bed and I have another contraction.
They check you, right?
They checked me. Well, Seal finally arrived. So you came at 9:36. Right. I got your text saying I'm on the elevator. So you literally were right. The next elevator trip behind us.
Yeah. So 9:36 I get there.
So
3 minutes later, Seal walks in.
3 minutes later, Seal walks in. 9:39, she checks me, and my water broke because my water hadn't broke yet. So there's another one for you ladies that are first time moms. You think your water's gonna break,
right,
like in the movies in the beginning, and it doesn't.
Doesn't happen there.
So it broke as she checked me, and I just remember her saying in one sentence, she's at a 10, we have no cervix. And then I said in the next breath, and I'm going to push. And in one push, here comes Libby. She slid right out in one push.
Completely.
And we had practiced J breathing.
Yes.
I did do it for that one. I can't say I'm a pro because
you did it in one contraction.
I mean, I guess it's that effective.
really
But
quickly.
we did that, like, you were like, Katherine, remember, breathe
Try
that.
J breathing, yeah.
Try J, breathe that baby out. And I was just like, oh.
Yep.
And then
You did
she
it.
just came. And I was in such shock.
We all were.
Watching the video, I was stupid. Because I was on just this birth high, and I was just like,
Totally.
you guys, like, what just happened? And I mean, my midwife was literally there for 2 minutes, and she
And I
did
was
tell me
there
I
for-
was not her fastest, but it was
Wow.
close. So
I was there
it can
for
happen.
5 minutes.
You were there for 5.
The midwife
and
was there for 2 minutes.
It
and
was
You literally
wild.
said, I have to push. And in one
Yep.
push.
And in that
she
next
flies
contraction, pushed, and there she was. And I was in shock. I couldn't
You were
believe
in
it.
shock.
I mean, because an hour and a half prior, I was putting my son to bed, laying on the bed with him.
I mean,
and
10 minutes prior, you're signing papers.
yeah, I actually have a picture on my phone. And I remember this because I looked up like the time and the details. 7:45, I snapped like a cute little like selfie in our bathroom mirror.
9:23, you're at the hospital signing papers. 9:36, I come off the elevator.
Yeah.
9:39, your midwife gets there. 9:41,
she's born.
born.
So
Talk
we were there.
about a fast
Yeah,
labor.
we were
that
there-
was your prayer.
Yes.
'Cause
And
your
it was
first
my
labor,
that was my prayer.
that was
Thank
your
you.
prayer.
Yes.
We remembered.
That a fast labor because I knew I could do the supernatural pain-free birth with my 30-hour
You're like,
labor with my
check.
son.
Got
It's
it.
like, we got that. And I was like, okay, God, like, be nice if it could be faster
else
this
you
time.
got?
So he's like,
Yeah.
okay, how's like 18 minutes for you? So, I mean, not really,
Is
but
that fast enough?
Yeah.
But it was amazing. Like, we were all there within minutes. And
Yeah.
so it's like you got everything you wanted.
yep. And she nursed for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
She was on
She
there.
was hungry.
She was hungry.
You were on a birth high. She was on a birth high.
It was amazing.
Like, those
I mean,
babies get that adrenaline too, and they're like,
yes.
"All right, I'm
we're
ready
like,
to go.
let's go." And I remember just
no.
being in our room. I think around probably, I don't know, 10:30, 11. You probably left.
Yeah.
And I remember we were just there, and my husband and I just kept looking at each other like, "How did that just happen?"
Yeah.
And I remember just literally retelling the story to ourselves over. That's probably how I know the timing so well, because we just kept retelling
Well,
it
it was
to ourselves.
so fast.
Like, how did this happen?
And it was so I have literally never seen a baby. You went from no head to baby is born.
Yep.
In one contraction.
Yeah.
I have literally never
Yeah.
seen that in my life.
And I did have like
or doula career.
that-
Like it's like in and out, in and out, in and out
Yep.
usually. And like the head goes, it's like this hours,
Yes.
sometimes hours
Yep.
of pushing.
And yeah, and that
And
was
there
Lincoln.
was- it's
Well,
not
and
like
Lincoln
I-
was posterior.
Yeah.
And she was posterior too, but she had turned
Yeah.
in labor. But he was born posterior, and
Yeah.
that was tough. And I only had 2 stitches this time, and my recovery was so much faster. Like,
Yep.
people could not believe how well I was walking around
like
the room.
right after, probably.
Like pretty much
next
right
day?
after. The
Yep.
next day, people.
Did you have swelling?
No, well, I did have a little bit of swelling in my feet afterwards, which was
Okay.
weird because I had no swelling in my feet
But
all
like,
pregnancy.
how about like everything
Oh,
else?
no. And it was crazy, and they couldn't believe, the nurses could not believe how well I was getting around.
Yep.
They're like, "You just had a baby," and I'm
That's
like, "Yeah."
the power of like pushing like that. I
Yes.
mean,
Yep.
the J breathing and like the fact that she probably was like the fetal ejection reflex where
Yes.
she just drops out of
Yep.
you.
And I mean, I still felt, ladies, that ring of fire. I did still feel that. I know some
Yeah.
people don't when they J breathe.
that's
but I
true.
think it was probably because she came so fast.
Yes.
Like, we
I mean,
had no choice. Like,
yeah, it was like
But-
you just went from 0 to.
And her head was just this perfectly round, it
No
still
mountain.
is, this perfectly round pumpkin
does
head.
have a round head.
And, it just was, it was incredible. But I do think this time, I mean, that birth was amazing. I wish every birth could be like that. Like, man, if I knew a next one was going to be just like that, I would say, oh yeah, let's do another one. Like, it just, that was just so powerful. But I think the difference this time was how emotional
Yeah, like
the end of
your
this
battle
pregnant-
was in the pregnancy.
Yes, it was not the birth this
Yeah.
time.
And we all face those battles.
Yes.
And you never know when you're going to hit your walls and those emotions
Right.
are going to come. So yeah, you really had to fight for this birth.
Yep.
In the weeks leading
Yeah.
up to it.
And I think my body too, like with that release of my grandpa dying the day before, I mean, I think my body was like, this is going to now happen fast.
Yeah.
Like
it was ready.
We have waited. You're at 41 weeks now. Like we're ready to do this.
It's like as soon as your emotions come into alignment, everything's in alignment. It goes, okay, time to have a baby.
Yep.
Yeah. What would you say to moms who are like type A like you, who struggle with that?
I don't even know if I have a ton of real advice because I still am working on it. I'm still struggling with it. But just that I had to have that moment of surrender.
Yeah.
That night in the bedroom at the feet of Jesus before she was born, like that 24 hours before, of just worshiping and praying and trusting God. And I remember just looking up scriptures about anxiety, about control, about patience, about trust, and just praying those over myself. And because God has promised to free us from those things. And that was my biggest challenge, was that. And I think that the Lord really brought that to light in my life and brought it to a head during that pregnancy so that I could address it.
Yeah.
And that's been since birth. I've been working on that and addressing that, because I can't be this uptight, anxious mom all the time who wants to have every day perfect and everything in control. And I'm learning to let go of expectations and let go of my need to control everything. And I think for birth especially, that's a great analogy. And your body can do what it needs to do when you give it that control, and you give your body the power to do it, and God the power to do what your body can do, because it can't happen.
It works
when we're all
so much better when we release.
Yep, absolutely.
So efficient.
Yeah, it was very efficient. So yeah, it was incredible.
Story.
And even postpartum with Libby, we had some challenges that God's been really, again, reminding me of that level of trust I have to have, and working through those things with her postpartum too. That was not an easy time. I had a rough first month there, but you get through it. And
even as a second time mom, it's not always just like easy. Breastfeeding, all that.
But it was beautiful.
Amazing.
Well, thank you. I have told so many people about the power of having a birth doula with them in pregnancy, and so many people still don't know about it. So thank you for doing this course to educate others. And oh, I'm so excited. It's great. You too. I'm excited for you all too, and your births that you're going to have. So
yay. We just released that testimony on you guys. If you're praying for like a fast birth, an easy birth, a smooth birth, if you've had traumatic births in the past or you were pushing for 4 hours, I just released Katherine's testimony over you. Like, just take it. Amen. Like, let your faith just claim it and say, you know what? I want that. I want my baby to just slide right out.
Yes.
Like, why not?
Yep.
It happened to her.
It can be anybody's story.
It can happen to you.
It really can.
So, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Karen, for having me.